Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. That's audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Geoffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health, and really without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. That's betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
Welcome to episode 28 of Nerdery and Murdery.
Who the fuck are you? Welcome to episode 28 of Nerdery and Murdery.
Hi there.
This episode releases on December 12th.
I am Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery. And welcome Trey Cadenhead to our little mix of nerd and murd as a guest host.
Hi there. How are you?
How are you?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to be here sitting around the table. This is fun.
Excellent.
I'm looking forward to this.
So Trey is our very first guest, and we'll see how this goes.
Welcome, guestery.
Perhaps the very last. No.
Takes my anxiety up a little.
I think we'll be all right, man.
We had anxiety this week, making sure our microphones are working and everything, and just, after multiple tales where we've talked about mental health, for our fans, I've struggled with anxiety and depression over the years. I get panic attacks to this day, but I know how to combat them usually. I'm feeling a little panic right now. I get stressed over recording and editing when we make mistakes. If anybody's going to listen, I panic over. I panic over all of it. Don't touch me.
I think you'll be okay. You'll be okay. There.
You got this.
I will say, however, the last almost 2 years have absolutely been the worst due to COVID, stress at work.
Yeah.
I used to watch the news every single morning, and I hardly watch anymore. I can't. I'm in such a news void these days.
Yeah. I can't even listen to NPR anymore.
Yeah, I can't take care more about the pandemic and world problems. I really have to avoid it now to feel better. And plus, doctors put me on some new meds, so I can definitely tell when it's time for meds because the anxiety goes up.
Sorry.
Thank you, Zig, for making my anxiety go up this week, but thankfully we've got it worked out.
We have got it worked out, and I think the synergy here is going to be exquisite. So as I have said, I collect curmudgeons in my life, and I have 3 of my favorites around the table right now.
Am I 2 of them? Is that...
I was counting Will.
Will, okay, all right.
So for our listeners that were expecting to hear tales of my trip to Vegas, that got canceled. Had a family emergency, and so maybe try it again in November.
Right on.
But coincidentally, due to the turn of events, I had to go to a CVS that was 24 hours instead of farther away. My usual CVS is not 24 hours. And when standing in line, I saw this.
Oh, nice.
America's Most Terrifying Killers.
Nice.
So,
look, it's got Eileen Wuornos on it.
So I've been,
awesome.
I've been reading through this. That's, getting information for, or at least, oh well.
Put that anywhere, dude.
Getting ideas from there. 2 updates I had from a previous recording. I talked about Adnan Syed from Serial. I did read, apparently I missed it. In 2019, the Supreme Court's rejected a new trial, so he's going to stay convicted for now.
Okay.
I still don't think he's guilty.
Right
on. And then from episode 26, when we did Chad and Lori Daybell, Chad's children were on 48 hours somewhere in the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
That was very interesting to listen to. They are 100% on board that Chad is innocent.
Okay.
I think they're wrong. And that Lori framed him. I think they're wrong. They talked about that there were multiple pet cemeteries in the yard, which is where he talked about the raccoon that he shot. But also authorities, the autopsy of Tammy Daybell never got released.
Yeah.
But authorities have told the kids that their mother died of asphyxiation.
Ooh.
Well, that doesn't mean she strangled, but yeah, she probably was.
Yeah.
And then Lori Daybell is still mentally unfit for trial, so that's going to continue on for a while. Like I said, I'm going to keep up to date on those since those are very current, but that's the latest of where I had. So, anything new in your world?
Nothing crazy. Just guestery.
Just guestery?
Guestery.
All right. Well, if you don't have...
Ziggy's excited.
He is excited, and I'm excited to hear
excited.
it. This is... I know what you're covering, and this is something I'm familiar with as I was an avid viewer for the entire run, and have watched it many times in reruns. But yeah, with that, Trey, if you want to take over on the nerdery side of the house.
Well, we are doing today. I'm here to kind of talk about M.A.S.H.
Well,
so,
that's because you know more about M.A.S.H. than any other human being.
I think the guys who wrote this book would disagree with you, but it's so we're talking about M.A.S.H. We're not talking about the original book so much. We're going to talk mostly about the TV series, but just so you know where the TV series came from. Richard Hooker, which was the pen name of a guy named H. Richard Hornberger, wrote the book in 1968. And it was actually about his experiences as a surgeon at a M.A.S.H. unit in Korea. And much to his consternation, he was a much more conservative fellow than the people who ended up making movies and television of his work. And the book, quite frankly, is short, thankfully, because it is hard to read, because it isn't really very good. Right. There were 14 sequels to it, none of which were any better.
Right.
I read the first 2.
Yeah,
M.A.S.H. and M.A.S.H.
Yeah, I made it about halfway through the third.
Well, and the sequel books really stray far away from the because you had M.A.S.H., then you had After M.A.S.H.
Well, yeah, we're still talking about the books.
No, I know.
The books read more like the hijinks at the front,
right,
which is what they didn't want the television show to be, which is what the movie was, but the movie was with a kind of an anti-Vietnam slant.
Well, because the sequels, they went home.
Yeah.
Hawkeye and others opened up Finest Kind.
Yeah.
And
M.A.S.H.
it
in
was
Maine.
funded
Yeah.
by Radar,
Right.
who went to Las Vegas.
Yeah, and it just none of it made much sense.
Right.
It
Well,
was-
Grandma O'Reilly's cookies.
yeah.
Well, and so I'll say this. To me, it reminded me of Forrest Gump the book and the sequel. The sequel was not really good.
Well,
at
when you
all,
have
and
to
it
when you
went
have to live
way,
up
way
to
out
something
there.
that's so good in the first place, because the first book was really good.
Yes.
So when you have to live up to that, I mean, how many sequels have just like
Well,
tanked?
like I said, the sequel to
Yeah.
Forrest Gump, it just went
Yeah.
way far
Right.
into the unbelievable.
yeah.
But that's kind of how I felt about the M.A.S.H. book sequels too. It just kind of went far into the unbelievable.
I really am less familiar with them than anything else about M.A.S.H. Robert Altman, I remember seeing the Robert Altman's M.A.S.H. uncut. My dad had recorded it on videotape from the overnight movie. This was before they censored overnight movies. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
with all the commercials in and so that was the first time I saw M.A.S.H. when I was way too young to be watching such adult material, because the movie is pretty raunchy.
Right.
1970, directed by Robert Altman. Donald Sutherland's playing Hawkeye.
Yes, you get to see a lot of Sally Kellerman in that
Got to
film.
see a lot of
Yes.
Sally Kellerman in a joke that does not hold up well. and
No, it
is
does not.
Incredibly cruel.
Yes.
But it does lead to that really great scene that she gets to do with this. This is not a hospital; it's an insane asylum, which is really one of the great screen breakdowns I think of all time. Is when she's throwing that temper, and then Colonel Blake's like, "Well, God damn it, Hot Lips, resign your goddamn commission."
Well, and I saw the movie years after the series started, so I didn't
Yeah.
see the movie first.
That must have been jarring.
It was very jarring. I
Wow.
remember. Yeah, I remember to this day that it was so different because I was so used to. I mean, the TV series was a staple in our house. It was
Yeah.
on every
Oh,
week. We watched it.
yep,
And
absolutely.
then seeing the movie, because I saw the movie second, I didn't
Were you
like the
were you
movie
an
as
adult
much.
when you saw it, or were you still a kid?
I was an adult, and so I didn't really like it at first, and it kind of took me years to appreciate it.
There's a lot to appreciate in it, most of it having to do with Altman's film style and the
Yeah.
way he records audio and
Robert
lays
Altman.
down audio, and the way you're always looking through things. Everything's always happening in the background, but you can hear what's happening that's out of focus in the foreground too. And when you're always looking through something, and he was kind of the first to make the audio do that too. So you're always listening to the conversations. I don't think that an awful lot of the script really holds up. I think that
From the movie or the TV show?
from the movie.
Okay.
I don't think a lot of the script holds up. A lot of it's really kind of cringy to
Sure.
modern eyes, and I think rightfully so. It's
Yeah.
an incredibly misogynistic movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
None of the female characters are treated with anything like
Well,
respect.
I mean, but come on. I mean,
and
think about movies of the 70s, because we've talked about this on this show too.
Yeah.
You could not release Blazing Saddles today.
Oh no, you couldn't
You
even
couldn't
make it.
release Sanford and Son today.
No,
And M.A.S.H. is another one of those. You release it today.
Barney Miller wouldn't get made today.
Oh gosh, no.
Faulty
Gosh, no.
Towers probably wouldn't get made.
No, I agree, and it's just that's kind of part of cancel culture where we are. Those type of movies will not be allowed.
But the thing is, but I think the important thing for keeping these movies around and watching them, and the Looney Tunes did it the best. When they released everything in the mid to late 90s, they released their entire catalog on Laserdisc.
right, yeah, right.
And the college I was going to at the time had it in the film archives. And so I got to go through all of them. But they had a card that came up at the beginning of any one that was really cringy and racist and uncomfortable, because mostly it had to do with racism. Mm-hmm. And any one of them, they were like, look, this is a period, this is something that was made when this kind of thing was okay. You need to remember that. You need to know that, and make of it what you will, but you got to preserve it, or people are going to forget that kind of thing existed and do it all over again.
Yeah, there's an outcry
And
right
that's
now to
kind of
cancel
the-
Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, give me a break. They're products of a time
Yes.
that is very far removed from our time. And, but I think that kind of to sort of scoot ahead with that thought, I think one of the reasons the television show is still so watchable, one of the reasons that the television show still holds up so well, is because it assumed that the people watching it were intelligent, and it knew that it always knew that it was handling a situation that was uncomfortable while it was handling it.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
never really shied away
I'm with
from
you.
it. You know, and in the early seasons of M.A.S.H, you get, so we're talking premiering in September of 72.
Okay.
So I was 6 months old. So
Yeah.
M.A.S.H has
I wasn't even
literally
born.
been, M.A.S.H has literally been in my life as long as I can remember. I remember a little 9-inch black and white TV we used to set next to the kitchen table if M.A.S.H was on at dinner time. So, it's I think the themes of it, now that I've gone back and watched it all again for this, I never stopped watching it. I've always watched it. I'll just load up episodes on my Kindle and let them run while I'm cooking dinner, because I think it's got something nice to say about humanity, and that makes all the difference. I kind of forgot where I was going with that big spiral.
Circling back.
I was going
As we
somewhere.
do.
I was going
You were
somewhere.
at the movies?
Yeah, I was at the movies. Do we want to do anything else about the movie? What do you guys? What do you think of the movie?
I still think I agree with you about Altman's style, the way he shoots through things. I think that's brilliant.
No.
But yeah, the script does not hold up.
No.
Yeah, well, I mean, the homophobic aspect of the
Yeah, which oddly enough
Yeah.
is one of the more enlightened parts of the movie,
Yes.
which is kind of, but that's kind of what I was saying about the book too, is the books are kind of that sort of
Yeah.
hijinks rather than this, look, here's a war, it's a terrible thing.
yeah.
And we've got, we're all in this situation. Well, how do you deal with it? You deal with it by being insane.
Yeah.
And they really fought very hard, in the first couple of seasons. They went back and forth with CBS about, we don't want this to be hijinks at the front.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the first season is when you start seeing episodes, the one where his friend gets killed. Sometimes you hear the bullet. That's when you really start to get these episodes where they're like, oh, this show's not going to, because CBS didn't let him use blood in the operating room. There was never any laugh track ever in OR
Yeah.
for the whole run of the series. But there was laugh track all the way through otherwise. It got less ham-handed as the seasons went on.
Yeah. Well, and they reduced the volume on it too. I noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and that's what we were talking about. Would you say season 11 was where the laugh track was very minimized?
Yeah, it's almost not there.
because that was the serious season.
Kind of. Season 9 and 10 are probably the ones, season 9 has Dreams, which is that one, that awful melancholy thing where they
Yeah.
all have these nightmares and dreams.
That one actually,
That's the one where Hawkeye sees his body parts.
Yeah.
right, in the
Mhm.
boat.
That's-
where he's floating with the mannequin parts.
Right.
and,
God, that's so creepy.
Charles Winchester was the magician.
the magician, and he can't perform.
Right.
He can't do the trick. Yeah.
And that one stands out so much in my brain because as a kid,
Well, I think it won every Emmy it could win.
well, that
Yeah.
episode made me nauseous.
Yeah, it's
when
scary.
I watched it.
Did it
Yes.
really?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And it
Well,
was,
yeah, because
it
it came late enough along. We're the same age. Yeah,
I think you two are exactly the same age. You're both
72. So
I'm 50.
okay, yeah. So I will be in April. So yeah,
Okay.
so yeah. But it's that. Yeah, you recognize it, and we were old enough to recognize that
and
it
it
was
was depressing.
really. Yeah, it's
Sad.
not one of my favorite episodes. I think it's
Mine either.
it's you understand when you watch it why technically it won all these Emmys because it ticks all the little Emmy acting
Oh, sure.
boxes. But I think there are episodes that deal with this desperation of war a lot better. There's
Agreed.
the one where the soldier takes over the mess tent as a church and basically holds Father Mulcahy's hostage. That's another later show, but I can think of, let's see, there's even earlier ones.
you had one with Hawkeye and Major Houlihan trapped in a barn.
Yeah,
As they were being
that was Comrades in Arms, and that was a two-parter. But I was thinking Rainbow Bridge deals a lot better with it. It's the one where they go and they get the wounded American soldiers from the Chinese, where they actually go and get the
Oh,
director from
yeah.
the
I
Chinese.
remember that one.
The late Captain Pierce, which is the one where he's mistakenly listed as dead, and spends the whole afternoon or the whole day with the guy from Gray's Registration breathing down his neck, trying to get him
Right.
out of there. Aid Station, which is the kind of the first one where we left the camp, where they go. It's Klinger and Margaret and Hawkeye go to an aid station. And it's great because it's the first time you see Klinger out of the dress.
Yeah.
It's the first time Klinger plays it, quote, straight, unquote, although there's more to be said about how Klinger played it straight.
Yeah.
Right.
For, in spite of the dresses. But yeah, I mean, there's so many of the episodes that were really just about, look, it's really hard to be over here. Here's how you be insane.
I seem to remember being fascinated when Trey and I met Jamie Farr. We were doing a show.
I never met Jamie Farr. I was unfortunate enough to be away when Jamie Farr was in town. Amanda's got his autograph.
Yeah. Well, maybe it was me and Amanda, but we were fascinated by the fact that he was actually from Toledo. He was a Mudhens fan.
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. You were away because all we could say was, "Oh my God, Trey needs to be here."
Yeah, Amanda's favorite is she gets to say, "Yeah, I got to sit right behind Jamie Farr in the back seat of a Saturn sedan because that was the rental car they had given him. Saturns were a brand new thing. Yeah, she's got his autograph. And what was it Richard Orr called him, that Lebanese bastard?
Yeah.
I do remember that. Because Richard will never let a joke go if he could help it.
No, he did not. He beat those horses down to
glue.
glue.
That's a tangent.
Good Lord, so do you.
Okay, this was my coach. This was my mentor.
Yeah. Where do you think he learned it? So let's see. What else about M.A.S.H. do we want to talk about? What else is there?
Well, you talked about favorite episodes and whatnot. My favorite episode of all, just because it's so silly and it's so funny, is the episode with Captain Tuttle.
Oh, Tuttle, yeah, that's season 1.
That's my favorite.
Where they just
episode.
invent Captain Tuttle.
Yes,
yeah, I like that episode.
And Major Houlihan falls in love with Captain Tuttle.
The show is good at playing with that, with rumor mills.
Yes,
and how. In order to kind of, it's
the episode where the doctor comes in and he thinks Hawkeye's insane because every time he sees him, he's doing something crazy. And at the end, he's doing a striptease singing "You're the Tops," and the doctor's like, "What is wrong with you?"
Oh, that's the practical joke episode.
Yeah.
That's season 11. That's the Joker is Wild. That's the last practical joke episode they did because the whole practical joke is that everybody is in on the practical joke except Hawkeye right from the beginning.
That's right.
And so everybody got with the practical joke, but they're not really because Hawkeye's the only one who's being made paranoid.
Right.
Yeah.
It's him sleeping in the barbed wire with his golf club.
It's actually because of M.A.S.H. that I learned how to barter. The episode with the hot tub, and they're all bartering different things, and they end up having to go trade through 4 different people to get the thing they want. And
they did a couple of those.
Well, and I used that. There was a Christmas gift exchange at my work one year, and somebody got a digital camera. They were relatively new, and I wanted that camera. I don't even remember what I had, but I tried trading with that person. I'm like, no, I really don't want that. What I want is that gift. So I had to go to that person, find out what they want. I ended up going through 6 different people to get the one thing the camera person
You turned
wanted.
a paperclip into a house.
I like
did.
it.
And I got that camera. It was my very first digital camera.
You were your own sitcom.
Yes. So M.A.S.H. taught me
awesome.
how to do that.
That's awesome. I do enjoy the gag episodes. I like the practical jokey episodes, but I think my favorites are the ones that are just different. Lifetime, the one where it's in real time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
where they put the clock on the bottom of the screen, and Hawkeye, they're on the chopper pad, and Hawkeye cuts the guy and closes his artery off, and they have to they're giving him hypothermia to stop the bleeding, and they're waiting for a guy to die outside so BJ can get the. Brilliant.
I think that episode is what inspired 24.
It might be.
Because that was a brilliant episode.
It was, doing things in real time is something that has been tried a couple of times in the movies. High Noon is basically in real time. The High Noon's like 80 some odd minutes, and the last 60 minutes of it is in real time.
Yeah, but M.A.S.H. doing it for a whole episode, I really think that inspired a lot.
Really hard for network television,
Sure.
and I give them complete props for actually going to their medical. Walter M. Dishel was their medical advisor for the whole run of the show, and he was actually a Korean War surgeon. But
Oh, nice.
But I give them props for finding something that fit within the 25-minute cycle of a television show.
Yeah, they
of a
found the
half-hour
injury that
show.
will work.
They found the injury that would be just good enough to give them just the right amount of drama that they could be just shy to do the sting at the end where the kid was okay.
Yeah.
But that's a good episode. They did Point of View, where it's all from the patients, where it's all from the injured soldier's point of view.
Yes, that's a great one.
And that's a good Colonel Potter episode too, because he's forgotten his wife's anniversary and he's talking to the kid, and the kid's like the one that talks him into,
Well, and the other thing about M.A.S.H, and you've touched on it a little bit, is it was not just a comedy; it was a comedy drama, because you did have some very high drama.
Yeah.
The one that everybody can point to is Colonel Blake going home.
Yeah, Abyssinia Henry.
And I don't know if you know this, you probably do.
Yeah.
Radar, Gary Berghoff was the only one that knew when he came into the OR.
Yeah, and he didn't know until they handed it
they handed it to him right before he walked in. You need to read this.
Larry Gelbart has clarified that. They knew that morning.
Mm-hmm.
The cast? What the cast knew that morning was that there were new extra pages they had to shoot at the end of the day.
Right.
And
because I was always told the reactions were real, because none of them expected.
Well, by this point, Alan Alda knew, because by this point he was a producer, and by this point Alan Alda was so much a creative element of the show that he knew. But no, the bulk of the cast did not know, and they didn't know that Henry was going to die.
Right.
That was the big thing.
What I had always heard is they got the script.
Loretta Swit.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, she did not know, because if you ever watch her, she's angry.
Oh yeah.
She is so angry that they did that to her.
And a lot of the cast were, because he was being written out of the show because of contract.
Yeah.
No, he took another show.
Right.
He was offered his own
Hello
show.
there.
Hello Larry, which was a bomb.
Which was terrible. And but yeah, no, that's a great dramatic episode. And it is such a great reading of that, where he just comes in and kind of faints against the door, or up against the thing.
Yeah.
And the other episode that always gets me, it always gets me. It's season 10. It's called Death Takes a Holiday. And it's the A story and the B story are both about as perfect as you could get. The A story is Hawkeye, BJ, and Margaret, with help from Father Mulcahy, trying to keep this very badly injured soldier alive past midnight.
Oh yes,
Christmas.
Yeah.
And they end up having to fake the death certificate. So because he's got kids, they found out that the guy's got a family and all that. So they end up having to fake his death certificate. Margaret, that line she's got, just fake a death certificate. It's a first for everything, I guess. But then the B plot is just as good. Charles Winchester has been getting all these packages from Boston, right? And nobody knows what's going on. And they've got all the orphans coming for Christmas feast. Well, the Christmas feast gets hijacked, so everybody pitches in their gift food, except Charles. And everybody's pissed at him. Well, it turns out what all the boxes were candy for the orphans at the orphanage, because it's Winchester's family's tradition to give all this candy away. Later on, during the party, find out that the candy's for sale on the black market. The kids never got the candy, and when he finally confronts the guy that runs the what do you call it? Orphanage. Thank you. Boy, that word just left my head
Orphanage?
in a hurry.
You just said it.
I know I did. Well, that was all the more frustrating. Or frightening, one or the other. But when he confronts the guy that runs the orphanage about it, he's like, look, I traded it for blankets and rice and pillows and things that will last months, and Winchester kind of gets this great sort of, first real humbling moment for him, where he realizes, oh, I see. I totally get it. Max Klinger, Klinger overhears it and brings him, Winchester's pouting in his tent. And, Klinger brings him this tray of food. And it's just, there's this great, thank you, Max. You're welcome, Charles. Because Max basically lets him know that he's overheard this whole conversation and that it's all okay. It's beautiful. And it gets me every freaking time I watch that episode.
Well, David Ogden Stiers is a great actor. He really is.
Yes.
His
however-
one guest turn on Star Trek,
I remember that.
yeah.
But
Oh my God, I loved him in Stargate too. If you never saw him he was a replicator.
Was he? I haven't
Yeah.
seen all of Stargate. I've only
It's-
seen bits and pieces of
yeah,
Stargate.
Stargate Atlantis.
It's
He's
uneven.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen any of the spin-offs. But
Yeah.
that's a different story. That's a different episode.
Sorry,
Right.
sorry.
well, but
Circling back,
much as I
as
love
we do.
him, I was a Frank Burns fan. And I preferred
Ferret face.
I preferred the Frank Burns over him.
Yeah, here's my take on Frank Burns. I think Frank Burns was a great foil for the first 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
After that, he was his was the one character that couldn't change.
Mm-hmm.
His was all these other characters started to have character arcs where they were growing.
Right.
You know, Margaret probably grew the most.
And she grew away from him.
And
You're
she
right,
grew away from
because
it, and their
he
relationship became
whiny.
awkward.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And he became a real kind of cardboard joke. And Larry Linville is on record saying he loved playing the part.
I bet it was a massive amount of fun.
But by season 5, it was getting really hard to write Frank with any kind of sympathy at all.
Sure.
And
You-
it's
you
really
had-
hard to it's really hard to have a regular character where there's zero sympathy.
Right. After
And-
Houlihan married Colonel Donald.
Yeah, Mr.
Donald Penobscot.
Donald
Penobscot. Yeah.
No, it's not. That's when the Frank took
Yeah,
a
that-
turn. I mean, it was
yeah.
okay for a little while. But then he got so whiny. And bad.
He was so.
Yeah.
And David Ogden Stiers is such a massively good actor. And
He is, and I loved him.
You know, his first episode as Winchester is probably one of the best introductory episodes for a new character in any given series ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Winchester hits the ground fully formed and running.
Right.
You know exactly who this guy is. I do one thing at a time. I do it very well, and then I move on, which is actually good advice. But
Well, you know, it's funny, and you talk about introduction of a character. One of the things that always bothered me, and I just can't help it, is the fact that Colonel Potter was not Colonel Potter at first.
he was General Steele.
Yes, he was General Steele in an
Yeah.
episode, and I always hated that.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to take this general that all of you in the studio audience have seen,
Yeah.
and now we're going to make him the colonel.
You've
And
got
it
to
just
remember, though,
bothered
you're
me.
mid-'70s. There were no VCRs, and people were
Right.
only thinking they were ever going to see it one more time.
Sure,
So
sure.
At the time,
Well,
that
and-
wasn't something they thought of.
And oh my God, he was so good.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, he was. He was
I mean,
great.
you think about before that, everybody knew that guy from Dragnet.
Yeah.
Right.
Which was just a cardboard cutout
Yeah.
character.
Harry Morgan, because we haven't
well,
said
no,
his name
well,
yet.
no,
Sorry, Harry
I don't.
Morgan. I couldn't think of
I
his
would
name.
beg to differ with you. There are bits of Dragnet that are hysterically funny
Because of Harry Morgan.
because of Harry Morgan. Have you ever seen the Lunchbox bit?
No.
There's an episode of Lunchbox. Okay, when we this is a real aside. When we take a break, I'll plug my Kindle into your Wi-Fi and I'll show you this 2 little 4-minute clips from a particular episode of Dragnet that's some of the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life. And it's all
Dragnet?
about Harry Morgan's lunchbox.
Okay.
And Jack Webb just being
Jack Webb.
puzzled as all get out about the whole thing.
Joe Friday. Just the facts, man.
Just the facts, ma'am. Which we're going to talk about just the facts, ma'am, later today.
Okay.
Yeah. So back to M.A.S.H.
Nope. Circling back as we do.
Circling back, there's I really like the signpost. You know, there were 3 signposts. This is one of my favorite kind of bits of trivia. There were 3 signposts. One for the Malibu Ranch set, which is now it's a state park now. The set's still there. They've actually got placards up and everything.
Is
And
that
you can
the same place where they filmed
the movie.
Yeah, and
And you've also seen the Duke boys driving under that
Yeah.
big arch
And
tree down
and
those
Star Trek
roads.
as well,
And
right?
Star Trek was out there.
Yeah.
Knight Rider has driven under that big thing of trees. Yeah, I mean, there's this big arcing grove of trees that's a road with a road underneath it that you've seen in every 70s and 80s television show that needed a rural setting. But yeah, lots of Knight Rider, although Knight Rider tended more towards the desert end. But yeah, this is up north in the mountains up above Malibu.
Okay.
And then there was a sign for Stage 9 at CBS on the lot. which was the dinkiest stage on
With no
the lot.
AC, too.
Yeah, with no AC. It was every bit as squalid as the camp apparently should have been. And they had real trouble lighting the interiors of those tents.
On a sound stage?
They had, olive drab that is non-reflective.
Okay.
You don't get a lot of bounce, right? So light on film tends to fall off real fast, especially the stocks they were using in the 70s and TV.
Did I mention he used to be a light guy?
If you watch, they figure it out somewhere in season 3. You'll notice that the roofs on the interiors of the tents become kind of this sort of light khaki.
Yeah.
Instead of olive drab. In fact, if you're watching it on a widescreen television, because if you're and on DVD, because the DVD is the original aspect ratio, not the television crop. So there's a lot of kind of stuff you could see that nobody ever would have seen.
Right on.
You could see where they pulled back the edges of the tents and you could see the clamps holding the edges of the tents back.
Oh, nice.
There's scenes where there's one great scene. It's the one with the tongue depressors. Remember where they get all the tongue depressors and Hawkeye builds the Washington Monument with tongue depressors and then blows it up?
Yeah.
There's a great scene towards the beginning of that where BJ and Hawkeye are walking into frame and Alan Alda is wearing blue Adidas running shoes. Like
nice.
the most 70s blue Adidas running shoes you ever could. I love the little bits that you can see in the background. There's, because, higher definition and everything is just so much fun with stuff like this. Where when they're shooting it, they're like going, everybody's going to watch it on a 20-inch TV. Who the hell cares? Over the air.
Yeah.
They'll be doing good to get 360 lines. You know, I mean,
no one's going to see these shoes.
There's in season 10, there's communication breakdown where Winchester is the only one getting newspapers because his family is mailing them to him first class. There's a big wide shot of the camp. They're shooting out on location at the ranch. There's a big wide shot of the camp, and they're in front of the swamp. There's a big crowd in the foreground where the scene's going on. But if you look way back in the back by the end of pre-op, where the entrance to the pre-op ward is, there's a guy standing there with his arms crossed just outside the doors. He's got a big white guy afro and beard, white blue jeans, and a blue chambray shirt.
Hello, 70s.
Yes, hello. And he's just standing there. And I'm sure that the direction from the director was, just stand there, don't move, nobody will ever know you're there. And here we are 50 years later going, hey, look at that dude.
Yeah,
Look
over
who
there.
the hell he is. So I think it's his book called him called it a woman, but I paused it and looked, and it's definitely a dude with a beard.
Right.
Love the mistakes in M.A.S.H. Let's talk about the last episode then.
Well,
Please.
before you get to the last
Okay,
episode,
yeah,
one
what do you want-
one piece of trivia that I had, and I'm sure you know it, and I'm sure you've heard it at least, but and I don't remember if it's the right or the left hand, but Gary Berghoff always has his hand.
Yeah, he's
hidden.
got a deformity,
Yeah.
like a genetic deformity.
You'll
with
never
his
see
hand.
his hand.
Yeah, that's why he's always carrying a clipboard.
Yeah.
or
I
something.
did not know that.
Oh wow,
He's
Yeah.
always got the trumpet,
Yeah.
and the scenes where he's doing the bugle, he's always got the bugle in his left hand.
'cause it's a
he's
deformed
always
hand,
got a
and he-
clipboard with his hand. His hand's always disguised because he had a kind of a club hand.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I did not know that.
No.
Yeah, so I'm surprised you didn't know that, but yeah, the last
And
episode.
he was.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and speaking of Radar real quick, because we didn't touch on some of the weakest last episodes for a character ever on a show
Yeah.
are Goodbye Radar parts 1
Yeah,
and 2.
yeah,
He deserved a better send-off
I agree.
than
Oh,
that.
my God.
Four,
Have you guys,
4
have
episodes
you guys ever
into the
seen
season.
the series that he did? after
Walter?
that? Yeah.
Yeah, Walter. It never aired. You can see him on YouTube, but it's called Walter with the little asterisks and everything. The premise is, now wrap your head around this: mid-sized, Midwestern kind of small city. Radar as a new beat cop, like just a new cop, like a freshly minted cop, and it's a buddy cop story with him and his buddy.
No way. I
And
could've
it's
seen
like,
that
and
after
the episode that I've seen, the episode that I really like struggled to sit through, much like Aftermath, the movie that the episode that I sat through, I think was the pilot, and it's basically all about him helping the kid get out of the bad kid gang and into the good kid gang. I mean, that's literally it's so not the character that left M.A.S.H.
Not a chance
And
I
it's a
could've watched
shame.
that.
But, Gary Berghoff was in his mid-30s by the time he was done with that. And he if the network had let him, he probably would have left a lot sooner.
Yeah. I mean, after all that, he was pretty much relegated to the Match Game.
Yeah. And well, he did a lot of theater producing and things. He went and he kind of became general manager of small theaters and stuff like that.
Oh, that's good.
He went and did theater. He did pretty well for himself. He made a living. He just didn't stay in Hollywood.
Yeah.
He ended up in the Southeast somewhere, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, he
Carolinas
actually ended up
Georgia
or Florida.
yeah,
Part of me wants to say Florida, but that's just because it seems like everybody ends up in Florida at some point or another. But yeah, no, he actually ended up, doing very good things just on a very small, out of the limelight scale. So, Gary Berghoff never really liked talking about Radar after he was done playing it because he played it from the movie. He was one of 2 actors that were in the movie that were also in the show.
Who's the other one?
In season 1, General Hamilton, G. Wood. The actor is G. Wood.
Okay.
I don't know. He went by G. Wood. It's his name.
Yeah.
But he played General Hamilton, and he was in 2 episodes of the first season, maybe right there, very early on.
Okay.
In fact, he's in the pilot.
Okay, so an episode with Oliver Wendell Jones, because I'm not going to say his name.
Oh, yeah, I know.
and Duke, who they get rid of really quickly in the series.
Yeah. Well, no, Duke's not in the series. Duke's never in the series.
I thought Duke was in.
They name check him as having been there, but already gone home.
Okay.
He is never in the series. Ugly John, the gas passer's there for a little while.
Yeah.
But he's really relegated to a very tiny.
And I'm sorry. I mean, I'm going all the way back to the beginning of this. It's really sad that you can't say that name because that was a character. I know exactly what you're avoiding.
Well, yeah, it's just uncomfortable.
Part of the time. Oh
Yeah.
no,
Well, and I remember in the movie they asked him, so why do they call you that? Because I used to throw the javelin.
Right. Yeah, that's in the movie. Yeah.
Right. I know absolutely, and it's just
It's something we'll talk about with Freeberg later on. Hint, hint. Spoiler alert. It's something we'll talk about later on also because some stereotypes just don't hold up.
Sure.
And that's one that just
didn't hold up.
No, it didn't. It didn't. But yeah.
I would like to.
Yeah.
To before we get to the last episode, I would like to talk about Trapper John M.D. just for a second. I did get some notes.
Yeah, because it really had nothing directly to do.
No,
with,
it did. It was the same character.
There was one
with
episode.
Purnell Roberts,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
There was one episode where Purnell Roberts is asleep in a physician room, and he's dreaming, and he's calling out people from the show.
Really?
Yeah.
And then they span to the wall, and you see the 4077. So it was a direct tie. They just separated it from the series except for that episode.
I know very little about Trapper John M.D. It's one of the side roads I've just never explored because I don't really do hour-long doctor dramas.
That's what it was.
I love
It was an hour-long doctor drama. And that show did run for I believe it was 7 seasons.
Long time.
Yeah, 7 seasons.
I remember the theme song because I remember theme songs. I remember the theme song.
That was a great theme song.
But
Loved
it was directly that character.
Yeah.
And they, like I said, they referenced it in an episode.
But it wasn't, I don't think it was a CBS property. Was it CBS?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
I will defer to you. All right. So last episode, and then I actually have a couple of last things to say about M.A.S.H. But
this day,
yeah,
the most watched non-Super Bowl on record.
Yep, exactly.
To this day.
Yep. And one of the best send-offs for a long-running television show
100%.
ever.
I only have one thing to say.
Right.
It's not a chicken.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I
right?
know. I mean, it was
not a chicken.
That's the other thing that gets one other one that gets me every time. Is,
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Matter of fact, that's the first.
Which is
Chloe's
actually,
like, I want to watch M.A.S.H. I'm like, you should watch the last episode first. And she was
no, I disagree.
bawling.
No, definitely don't watch the last episode first.
She was bawling, but she was like, "Oh my God, this series is so good." I was like, "That's probably was on for
go
11
back.
years."
Yeah. You need to end it right, and and I love that they brought back Sydney for that final episode.
Oh yeah.
Sydney's my favorite character.
Sydney was kind of a recurring character all the way through. Alan Arbus is a great actor, and he was sort of one of my favorite sides. Dear Sigmund is in my top 20 favorite episodes where he's writing the letter to Sigmund Freud, and it's great because all it is just thumbnail sketches and bits that these different characters are doing. There's not really any plot to it. It's just this letter that he's writing.
Well, and it was very appropriate for him to come back for that episode where the central focus for quite a bit of the episode,
most of it,
is Hawkeye crazy.
Right.
Yeah, has he finally snapped?
Right.
Has he finally really snapped?
Yeah, and that's what was so great about Sydney being back and them kind of really doing that storyline.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the show, and it really, they finally got a chance to really do on a larger scale than half an hour exactly the kinds of mental illness that they'd been talking about.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the soldiers that came through, there were always B-plots about soldiers. Oh, I don't want to go back, Doc. And there were all the various different ways that they either arranged for that not to happen or, sent them to Sydney, or Sydney came in. There was the billfold syndrome where the guy had forgotten who he was and they had to hypnotize him, which was a little hokey because hypnosis is a little hokey. But, but I think the last episode is one of the finest episodes of television ever, anywhere, ever.
Sure, absolutely.
Full stop.
Yeah. Just full freaking stop.
Yeah, can't disagree. Can't disagree at all because it's a beautiful episode. It's a beautifully done episode, and it's funny and it's heart-wrenching and it's everything that M.A.S.H. was over the years wrapped up into 60 minutes.
Right. I mean, even like season 5, which was kind of a weak season because that was Frank Burns' last season, and they didn't have a lot for anybody to do.
Right.
BJ was still a new character who was mostly using scripts that were written for Trapper.
Sure.
The first few, if you really kind of go back, and this is how granular I've gotten with the show, if you go back and you really watch the first dozen episodes or so, BJ really sounds like Trapper. He's just doing Trapper's lines. He really is.
Yeah.
And then with a little bit of the Family Guy overlay. And then they get into the episodes where they really start developing him as a character.
Oh, absolutely. Because you can tell when they shoehorned him in, he was a direct replacement and he was a goofball with Hawkeye.
He wasn't really a direct replacement, though, was he? Because he wasn't the womanizer that Trapper was. He was a very nice contrast.
That's what I'm saying. They brought him in as Hawkeye's buddy, his new buddy.
Yeah.
And then slowly they really developed BJ Trapper.
BJ.
I've got going backwards here. BJ into the devoted family man, and really kind of had a serious side, and so
he was the practical joker of the bunch too,
right?
Yeah,
because he was the one behind most of the later Practical Jokes episodes. There was the one where Charles was playing them against each other, with Margaret and then BJ, and they get wise to him. That's the one where they drop the dummy on her, and she tears the dummy up. And the B plot is that the heroic helicopter pilot can't fly without his dummy, so Father Mulcahy goes instead. What could be luckier than having a priest on board?
So, and I'm sorry, I'm tailing off, but you brought up Father Mulcahy. Didn't I see somewhere there was some controversy with him recently?
With William Christopher himself?
Yeah. Did I see something?
I don't know.
I thought William Christopher passed away a few years ago.
He did.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
But and so maybe I'm wrong, but I could have sworn that I saw some sort of controversy.
He had an autistic son, and he was a very early celebrity. He was a very early celebrity. The word that comes to mind is endorser, but that is not proper context for the word endorser.
Right, I know what you mean.
But he was making people aware of autism.
Okay.
Because he had an autistic child, and he was always later in his life very much into autistic. That's what I know about him. Maybe. I don't remember.
There may not be. I could be thinking of something else. But he passed.
Well, and it wasn't
ago.
Rene Auberjonois, because Rene Auberjonois was the
he was Father Mulcahy in the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Which was a tiny little part.
Yeah.
You blink and you miss him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could be thinking about something completely different. So,
and I think I can sum up M.A.S.H. in one exchange of dialogue from all of the series, and I was an asshole and didn't write down exactly which episode. I can't remember, but they're in OR, and it's Hawkeye and Father Mulcahy.
Okay.
And Hawkeye says, "War isn't hell. War is war, and hell is hell. And of the two, war is a lot worse." Mulcahy says, "How do you figure, Hawkeye?" Hawkeye, "Easy, Father. Tell me, who goes to hell?" Mulcahy, "Sinners, I believe." Hawkeye, "Exactly. There are no innocent bystanders in hell. War is chock full of them. Little kids, cripples, old ladies. In fact, except for some of the brass, almost everybody involved is an innocent bystander." And that's M.A.S.H. in a nutshell to me. And Fig Newtons and Scotch. They're great if you dunk them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's episode 5, season 5, episode 20.
Thank you.
Look at you.
Captain Internet.
I think you guys had the same episodes in mind when you.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of them. I mean, well, and it's not that surprising because the ones that are the favorites that we named were also very highly acclaimed.
Yeah.
And
Well, and it's a show that's got so few episodes that miss the mark completely.
Oh, yeah.
And so many of the ones that miss the mark are so early on.
Yeah.
You know, but I think it also speaks a lot to the age when they would allow a show to have a season to find its way to be.
Yeah.
You know, Barney Miller's the same way. I'm a huge fan of Barney Miller, not so much the first season.
I'm a huge fan of Barney Miller.
Although I do miss, I was always disappointed when they got rid of Chano. Because Chano was one of my favorite characters. I love Chano.
You know,
Oh my God! And they killed that same actor off very early on in Miami Vice.
Yeah, I know, right?
it wasn't until
Well, actually, Chano left because the actor got he got offered his own show.
Yeah.
And so he took his own show and it failed. He kind of had the McLean Stevenson thing where he's like, well, I'm on a hit show, so I'll leave it for my own show, which is a silly thing to do.
Hello, Larry.
But I always kind of missed him.
It wasn't until just a few years ago that they put the Pot Brownie episode on the DVD collection.
Yeah.
It's on the Shout Factory.
Yeah,
release.
it wasn't allowed for a long time.
And
you could never see.
Well,
it
the episode's
repeats.
called Hash.
Oh, I
for crying out
know.
loud.
And
Sharp as a tack.
that's one of the funniest episodes ever.
All I
on
know
TV.
is I ain't never going to feel no better. That's a great Harris episode, too, because he gets all the good...
Ron.
Sharp as a tack.
I know. That episode is phenomenal.
I love the fact that he's
Ron
he
Harris
actually-
is one of my favorite actors.
Rip Ron Glass.
Yeah, Ron Glass.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hate that Ron Glass is gone. That hurts a Firefly.
Firefly
Returns.
I was always when I first saw, because I was late comer to Firefly, and when I finally saw Firefly, I was like, oh my God, it's
Harris.
Ron
yeah, it's
Glass,
Ron.
yes.
So, but yeah, we could probably almost do an episode on Barney Miller.
I think we
but
should.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think just if you're in a place where you can watch MASH without the laugh track, it's a different show,
Yeah.
and you will see MASH is all over Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't really realize that until you watch the show really without the laugh track. Not even like the later seasons where it's just kind of lightly sprinkled.
Yeah.
When you really watch it just without the laugh track and actually watch what the actors are doing in
Plays like
those
Sports Night.
silences.
It plays like Sports
It
Night.
plays like Sports Night, which took about half a season for the laugh track to kind of fade out.
Yeah.
And then in the second season, it was almost gone. And then, unfortunately, that show never got picked up because I think that show had a lot of potential.
That's really sad because that's some of the greatest dialogue ever on TV.
But I think West Wing is still one of the finest best written shows, and certainly best performed shows. Talk about an ensemble cast.
That's one I still have to watch.
You haven't watched West Wing?
I've not watched West Wing.
wow.
Chelsea just went through
It's
it.
got its it's like MASH. It's got its weak seasons,
Mm-hmm.
but and they're the seasons that Aaron Sorkin wasn't writing most of the episodes. Really, to be honest, to be perfectly honest with you, not to denigrate the writers who were writing, but the show got very serious in seasons 5 and 6, and it wasn't until Aaron Sorkin kind of came back for season 7 as a producer that the show really got some of its humor.
Did
back.
you guys ever catch the series he did after West Wing?
Was that the newsroom one or
Studio 60?
Studio 60, yeah.
Studio 60 was probably some of the best work I've ever seen out of him.
I
liked it better than Sports Night.
I've seen clips enough to know that if what I'm watching is the best of the show, then I would still probably say Sports Night or West Wing are better, but I'm guessing on that.
Okay.
So I mean that because I haven't seen the show, so I can't really speak intelligently to whether it's any damn good or
It's the
not.
play between Matt Perry and Bradley Whitfield and Amanda Peet. There's the three of them together just playing off of each other. There are some scenes where it's 5 minutes just them just
Yeah.
verbal gymnastics. And it's beautiful.
I don't know. The entire cast of Sports Night. Just have Felicity Huffman, Robert Guillaume, the two dudes who I can never remember their names, but the two hosts.
Yeah.
Well, to me, it has one of the greatest speeches in television history.
Sports Night does?
Yes.
Oh, which one?
It's the Poker Night episode. and it's where I don't remember the characters' names anymore, but the guy with the glasses, he's dating the one girl, and they're at the table, and it's him talking about, because she's saying, "You're bluffing."
Oh,
and it's his whole
it's
speech
the whole thing about bluffing.
about how he would.
He does this whole circular logic thing.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It is.
I've got a Jaffe quote, because Jaffe was Robert Guillaume's character. I've got a Jaffe quote written down around here somewhere. Yeah. It's taken me a lot of years, but I've come around to this. If you're dumb, surround yourself with smart people. And if you're smart, surround yourself with people smart enough to disagree with you.
Can't disagree. Can't disagree
at all.
Yeah.
But great. No, Trey,
Yeah, so that's M.A.S.H.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our take on
Let's
M.A.S.H.
give him a little bit of this.
Good trip down. Good trip down memory lane. Talking about M.A.S.H.
I'll give you guys a bibliography. You can post my huge
Absolutely,
reference because
I want the links.
There's
put on our
this.
website.
I have provided some links, but I think he's got more.
There's this gigantic tome here sitting next to me that I look like I'm going to Bible study.
We have some listeners that like to go to our website and follow our links to see where we got.
There's some good M.A.S.H. ones. I'll copy it all down for you before I take off.
Cool.
It's
I've got some
good stuff. Yeah.
Love it.
There's a lot of good M.A.S.H. fans.
I think that was a very successful first guest.
Right on.
Do I get to do guest murder-ish? Do I get to guest murder somebody?
I don't care.
Oh, okay. I'm not prepared for that.
Wait. That's always me.
Oh,
I'm leaving.
oh.
So
I go.
No.
I'm taking over the transitions. I'm doing it now. Now, don't you hear me? Sorry.
Murder.
I guess that's time. My cue to go over to the murdery side of the house.
Is that what you call a segue?
Yeah.
Murder.
All right. So on my side of the house today, what I'm going to be covering, I got from Mental Floss, one of my favorite sites, Thought Catalog, CBS News, 48 Hours, Listverse, the Toys Matrix, and Circleville City Hall website. So for this, I'm going to be talking about the Circleville Letter Writer.
Okay.
We'll kind of start off in Circleville, Ohio. This is the county seat for Pickaway County in Ohio. It's not a big town at all.
Okay.
The latest census showed it had a population just under 14,000. At the time the story took place, it was about 12,000. So it's not a big place at all. It was formerly made into a city on my birthday in 1853. Not
nice.
Anybody really cares, but I found it interesting.
You would love when stuff like that happens.
I do.
Oh, that's my birthday. Hey, cool.
Yes, oh my God, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's a robot. I can't think of the name of the movie.
Terminator.
And every single time the world ends, it's on my birthday. It's on August 29th. Every time.
Circleville's tell you everything right there.
Right. Circleville's a manufacturing town. It's got a whole bunch of manufacturing companies in it, like Anheuser-Busch. And it's 25 miles south of Columbus, Ohio. They've even got a water tower that's painted like a pumpkin. It's the symbol of their annual pumpkin show where local farmers take pride every year in seeing who can grow the largest pumpkin. The largest one is in 2004, and it was 1,353 pounds.
That's a great pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
That is.
It's a big old pumpkin.
They've held this festival every year since 1903. Unfortunately, it was canceled in 2020 due to COVID.
Of course it was.
But it's the highlight of the town every year.
Yeah.
It's really big. So it's a really small neighborly town.
Uh-huh.
One that you would not expect when the Circleville Letter Writer began terrorizing this town.
Tell me he killed people with pumpkins.
No. The pumpkins were just for show, just to talk about the town. Because I really just wanted to paint the picture of this. This is really kind of a small town.
Yeah.
Which is amazing when what happens. It was in the summer of 1976 that school bus driver Mary Gillespie, she received a letter that was postmarked from Columbus, Ohio, and there was no signature, there was no return address, and the letter accused Mary of having an affair with the Westfall School District Superintendent Gordon Massey and warned her to stop the affair. In the letter itself, it said, "Mrs. Gillespie, stay away from Massey. Don't lie when questioned about him. I know where you live. I've been observing your house and know your children. This is no joke. Please take it serious. Everyone concerned has been notified and everything will be over soon." So I'm going to put a picture on our website of the first letter. They were all written in big block letters, like on the way the paper looked to me, like we used in kindergarten, that had, big lines and a line in the
Well, the
middle.
little dash line for the lowercase, so you could get the halfway.
That's
of the
really what the letters looked like to me.
Wow.
Another letter said, "It's your daughter's turn to pay for what you've done. I shall come out there and put a bullet in that little girl's head."
to the same person.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you know what?
That's direct.
And this is, this that we're once again here. Had I gotten that last letter, I'm going to the police.
Call
Yeah.
the police.
Right.
Yesterday.
But she didn't. She didn't take
Okay,
the letter
wait.
seriously.
So, just out of curiosity, because it's the first thing I thought, was she actually having an affair with the superintendent? Do we know?
We do know, and I'll get there.
Okay, fair enough.
She ignored the letters.
Okay.
Her husband Ron then started getting the letters. Also had Columbus postmarks, no signature, no return address, and it demanded that Ron go to the school board about the supposed affair or risk being killed.
Huh.
One such letter told Ron to admit the affair to the Westfall School Board, and if Ron refused, the writer threatened to kill him. There was another letter that read, "Mr. Gillespie, I don't know which one it is. Your wife has seen Gordon Massey. You should catch them together and kill them both. He doesn't deserve to live."
Wow, this is somebody with something in for somebody, right?
Mm-hmm. There was another letter to him that read, "We know what kind of car you drive. We know where your kids go to school." And Mary told her husband, "I am not having an affair with Gordon Massey." So there you go. And so Mary and Ron just decided to stay quiet about the letters. They didn't tell anybody. They just kind of hoped they would stop. They didn't. Within a few weeks, more letters arrived and said that if the affair was not ended, the letter writer would disclose the affair on CB radio and billboards.
CB radio.
Wow.
This is in the 70s.
76.
That's the most 70s threat I've ever heard. I'm going to put it out on the CB.
One of the letters said, "Gillespie, you have had 2 weeks and done nothing. Make Mary admit the truth and inform the school board." So Ron and Mary at this point decided they better take the letter to the sheriff's office. And they wanted the letters to stop.
Yeah.
They were kind of getting freaked out. And so an investigation started, and authorities actually placed taps on their phones.
Okay.
Started watching houses, and they even tried working with the Postal Service to try to determine who was writing these letters.
Okay.
However, the letters kept coming. They had the same tone and were still being postmarked from Columbus. The Gillespies then decided to tell their family about the letters. They told Ron's sister Karen and her husband Paul Freshour. Paul worked at I talked about the local Anheuser-Busch plant. He worked there. I thought it was interesting. He was once a prison guard who survived as a hostage for 30 hours when inmates took over the Ohio State Penitentiary in '68.
Oh, wow.
He actually used that to become an extra in the 1980 Robert Redford movie Brubaker when it was filming in the Columbus area.
Oh, wow.
I loved Brubaker.
When Ron and Mary were telling the fresh hours of the letters, Mary said she had a suspect. There was another bus driver named David Longberry, and he once made a pass at Mary.
Okay.
And so Mary thought that maybe David felt jilted by Mary and wanted to taunt her. So they agreed that Paul would write a letter to David telling him that they knew what he was doing. They needed to stop immediately. The letters then stopped.
Okay. All right.
Well, that
was quick. We're done.
Yeah.
No.
wow.
Wow.
There's gotta
The
be a
fastest
sting- gotta
story
be a
we've
sting
had.
in this tale somewhere. Or it's an early lunch. Great. No,
Well, so Ron and Mary both thought that the ordeal was over, but then they started seeing signs posted around the town.
wow.
Yes, claiming that Gordon Massey was romantically involved with the Gillespie's 12-year-old daughter, Tracy.
What?
Okay.
So Ron began driving around town, tearing the signs down before Tracy could see him. I mean, he had to wake up early every morning to go remove the signs around town. So before she got up and went to school that day.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. Letters were being sent to newspapers, elected officials, and other citizens of the town. Then on August 19th, 1977, Ron received a phone call while he was at home. The caller told Ron that he was watching the house and knew what Ron's truck looked like. They said Ron flew into a rage. And he told his family he recognized the voice and was going to go take care of this once and for all. So Ron raced out the door to his truck, brought his gun with him. A few hours later, Ron was found dead behind the wheel of his truck after he ran off the road and crashed into a tree. Ron's gun was found under his body and had been fired, but no shell casings were found.
And he hadn't been shot.
He had not been shot.
Okay.
They claimed it was the sheriff, Dwight Radcliffe. He claimed it was a result of drunk driving, but Ron's friends and family said he rarely drank, and he wasn't drinking that day.
Right on.
Ron's autopsy, though, showed Ron had a blood alcohol count of 0.16, which was twice the legal limit in Ohio. And Sheriff Radcliffe said he initially suspected foul play, but with the autopsy results, he determined it was a drunk driving accident. Radcliffe did tell Paul that there was one person of interest who he didn't name, but was questioned and passed a polygraph. Some people think that might have been that David.
The David guy.
Yeah. Paul did keep pushing the sheriff to take a closer look. He wanted to know the truth about Ron's death, and he wanted to know who was writing the letters.
Yeah.
Because soon more letters started arriving. The letters began going to other Circleville residents and claimed that Sheriff Radcliffe was covering up the details of Ron's death and that Mary and Gordon Massey were responsible for Ron's death. Letters were now going to local businesses, government offices, school, and even more citizens. During this, Karen and Paul, their marriage started going bad, and they were getting a divorce, so Karen moved into a trailer on Mary and Ron's property.
Okay.
Mary then admitted to Karen that Mary actually did have an affair with Gordon, but swore it only started after the letters began and not before.
Okay.
Who knows?
Sure.
The letters kept coming. One read, "Everyone knows what you have done. If you don't believe us, just make them mad and find out for yourself."
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
It's starting to sound like Heather's. Remember?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. A little like Heather's.
Starting to sound a little like you.
So remember, this started in 76. February 7th, 1983.
What?
Letters have been coming.
Wow.
For 5 years? Or 6?
That's 76 to 83. 7.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
7
I
years.
can do math.
Hey,
Well,
math.
as long as one of us can.
Yeah, I'm not good at it. On February 7th, 1983, Mary was just starting on her bus route.
Right on.
And she saw signs along her route accusing Gordon of raping Tracy, her daughter.
Uh-huh.
So Mary stopped the bus to take down one of the signs. I'm so glad there were children not on the bus. She was just starting her route, and she had no children on the bus at this time. She started to take down one of the signs, and as she did, she noticed that there was a string of twine attached to the box. She carefully took down the box and discovered it was a booby trap with a gun inside that was set to go off once the sign was pulled down.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
So Mary took the box to the sheriff, who tried to determine who owned the gun.
Wow. We got us a MacGyver.
A little bit. The serial number had been filed off the gun, but they were able to recover enough to identify who the gun belonged to and who they assumed was the Circleville Letter Writer. The gun belonged to Paul Freshour.
The brother-in-law?
Okay.
Yeah.
Paul claimed that the gun...
Curiouser.
I know. So Paul claimed that the gun had been stolen, but he never reported it.
Yeah.
Of course not.
He also claimed he was innocent of setting the trap. A co-worker of Paul's named Wesley Wells said Paul had purchased the gun from him for $35. Paul had also taken the day off work on February 7th.
Huh.
Handwriting samples were taken from Paul's employment file and were analyzed by handwriting experts. And they claimed that the handwriting matched 391 of the letters and 103 postcards that were sent to the Gillespies and other Circleville residents.
Huh.
Wow.
Karen, remember
How many
Paul's-
letters
letters are we talking about in total here?
So by the time we get to the end,
Because you just said 391 of the... wow.
I actually have it in a bullet later on. All told, there were over 1,000 letters.
Oh, my God.
that were sent.
Lord.
So I didn't mean to jump the gun.
No,
but
you're
holy
fine.
cow.
You're fine. Because
Yeah.
right.
Wow.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Go on. Wow.
So Paul's wife, Karen, they were in the midst of the divorce. She told investigators that Paul was infuriated with Mary.
Uh-huh.
She said that Paul had thought the world of Ron and Mary before Ron died, but after his death, Paul hated Mary and hated her over the Gordon Massey deal.
Yeah.
She then told investigators that her estranged husband was behind the Circleville letters. She said she found one letter torn up in the commode and had found a couple of other letters hidden in the house. But on the 48 Hours documentary I saw, they said Karen didn't keep the letters and couldn't show them as evidence.
Huh.
I found that odd.
Well, okay, I get the one torn up in the toilet. I mean, it's kind of hard to recover that.
I wouldn't want it back.
Yeah.
But I still probably would have taken that if I thought he was the Circleville
Well,
letter writer.
if I found some other letters, I definitely would have kept those.
Yeah, no kidding.
Investigators, however, they found Paul to be very cooperative.
Yeah.
He didn't demand for a lawyer. He answered all of their questions. He readily admitted to owning the gun. They asked him how the gun ended up in the booby trap, to which he replied, I don't know.
No
What
idea.
I said, booty trap.
He even allowed them to search his house and his car, but he did fail a polygraph. Now, polygraphs aren't necessarily,
Yeah.
the gold standard. So,
You need a salt lick right next to it.
right.
Yeah.
Sheriff Radcliffe asked Paul to try and copy samples of the letter, which resulted in a handwriting match. This was very, very controversial because they didn't ask him for a handwriting sample. They asked him to copy the letters. Worried about those cushions.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure I should let you know or not.
Yeah, they need to be replaced. Again, I'm sorry. We had to take a quick pause. So normally they ask for handwriting samples.
Yeah.
This, they actually asked him to copy the letters.
Yeah.
So, a little controversial, not very standard procedure.
Yeah, because honestly, if I were guilty, I would do my worst. Hell, if I were innocent of it, I would do my worst job. See, looks nothing like me.
Sure.
I've been like doing it left-handed and shit. Sure. Hey, oh no, gee, this is my handwriting. No.
Well, Sheriff Radcliffe, however, felt he had enough evidence. He arrested Paul for the attempted murder of Mary Gillespie.
Okay.
He was indicted by a grand jury on March 1983 and put on trial October 24th, 1983. So the evidence against Paul was very circumstantial. His fingerprints were not on the booby trap box. The box itself was an industrial-sized chalk box, one that was easily found at Anheuser-Busch. No one saw Paul near the trap. And the defense had multiple witnesses who testified to seeing Paul at home on February 7th.
Okay.
Paul said he was at home having work done on the house, and that was corroborated as well. The defense even tried pointing the finger at his ex-wife, Karen. The lawyer stated, who hated Paul enough to get him into trouble? If you read the divorce decree, who stands to profit financially if Paul goes to prison? In the divorce, Karen lost her home, custody of their daughters, and was now living in the trailer on Mary's property. So, kind of had a point. The trial lasted a week, and the jury took 2.5 hours to return with a verdict of guilty on the charge of attempted murder using a firearm that was either in Paul's possession or under his control. 39 of the letters were admitted into evidence, but Paul was not formally charged with writing any of the letters.
Okay.
His defense argued there was no direct tie to Mary's life in the letters, so they really weren't relevant to the case, but a judge allowed it anyway. A lot of people think it was the letters that damned him on this.
Yeah.
A handwriting expert did testify under oath that he believed Paul was the letter writer, was the writer of the Circleville letters. And both Mary and Karen stated that they both believed he was the writer as well.
Okay.
Judge William Ammer sentenced Paul to 7 to 25 years, plus an additional 3 years for controlling a firearm during the offense. So Paul goes to jail, and the residents of Circleville and the sheriff's office, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Their town could now go back to its very peaceful small town feel. The man who terrorized their town was behind bars. No more letter was arrived. Case closed. Everything would go back to normal.
Uh-oh.
The letters kept coming.
Somehow I was going to say, somehow I have a feeling.
The letters kept coming while Paul was in prison.
Yeah.
Paul himself received a letter while he was in prison that said,
Whoa!
yes, it
I'm
said,
stealing
quote,
Ziggy's line now. Whoa!
What? What?
it said, quote, now when are you going to believe you aren't going to get out of there? I told you 2 years ago, when we set them up, they stay set up. Don't you listen at all? No one wants you out. No one. The joke is on you. Ha ha. Don't, or tell no one of this letter. I saw the paper. Great news. Great. The sheriff loved it. Ha ha. Do you believe it now? Do you? So Paul was placed in solitary confinement with no access to mail at all. He was not even allowed pens or paper. He was strip searched every time he went out in the cell and when he went back in. And when he was allowed mail, all of his incoming and outgoing mail was inspected. The letters kept coming.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And not
I was just going to say that.
And not just a few letters, hundreds of letters were sent.
Yeah.
The letters.
Somebody's got a lot of free time.
Well, yeah. And they said that the letters also started becoming more cruel. One accused the prosecutor in Paul's trial, Roger Klein, of having murdered a pregnant schoolteacher. The letter threatened to dig up the victim's grave and mail the bones to the police unless Klein admitted to impregnating the woman and killing both her and her unborn child.
Whoa.
Yeah. Then in 1993, the TV show Unsolved Mysteries decided to do a feature of the mystery of the Circleville Writer. Before they began filming, the show received a postcard. The postcard was once again in block lettering, similar to the other Circleville letters. And this one read, quote, "Forget Circleville, Ohio. Do nothing to hurt Sheriff Radcliffe. If you come to Ohio, you El Sickos will pay. The Circleville Writer."
Oh, my God.
The show decided to go film there anyway.
Of course they did.
Oh, my God, you're in shock.
No. I think it's the sheriff. That's it. I'm done.
Okay, all right.
I'm not placing any bets just yet.
So Unsolved Mysteries, they went to town to film.
I want to see which member of the production crew dies.
Well, so Karen, the ex-wife, she was reportedly very unhappy that Unsolved Mysteries was in town filming.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Pam Stanton, Paul's niece, got a phone call from Karen telling Pam it would be in Pam's best interest to not go to the interview. Karen refused to be interviewed, but Pam said that Karen sat on the other side of the intersection from the interviews and took pictures of everybody going in and coming out for the interviews. So that was it. Nothing really eventful happened while Unsolved Mystery was there. They just did a lot of interviews. But there was something else that came up in police reports that was never brought up in trial. Another bus driver that morning said he saw a man at the exact same spot where the sign would be discovered by Mary 20 minutes later. She said she saw a man standing beside a yellow El Camino, but he turned away like he was going to the bathroom, and the bus driver did not get a good look at him. She said he was a large man with sandy hair. Paul Freshour was not large, and he had very dark hair. Karen was dating a man at that point who was large with sandy hair.
Okay.
And Karen's brother also owned a yellow El Camino.
Okay.
Wow.
So all of this is very circumstantial. None of it points directly to Karen. The man was not seen put up a sign. I'm just surprised this was never brought up in trial.
Yeah.
Because it really throws doubt into Paul's guilt.
Yeah.
So who knows? In 1994, Paul Freshour was released from prison, and the letters abruptly stopped. Paul continued professing his innocence and even requesting that the FBI investigate the case, but they never responded. He actually has a website that I'll have a link to in the show notes, where it's all of his writing to the FBI and what he believed. Paul's niece Pam, that we talked about before, she told 48 Hours she believed that Paul believed that his son Mark stole the gun. Paul, however, never pointed his finger at his own son. But on September 11th, 2002, the 39-year-old Mark Freshour shot himself and was found dead floating in the Scioto River in Portsmouth, Ohio. Karen said that Mark had suffered from years of depression from the divorce and the letter. She said it destroyed him. Pam said she believed Mark just couldn't take the guilt any longer. Who knows? Some interesting points of note here. Overall, there were over 1,000 letters sent. Some of them contained arsenic.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's lovely.
And the Circleville writers did seem to know a lot about the goings-on around town. So after an investigation by an Ohio TV station, it was confirmed that the prosecutor, Roger Klein, had indeed gotten a former school teacher pregnant, Vicky Cox. And she was found dead on September 17th, 1980. He did get investigated and was eventually cleared, but Vicky's murder has never been solved. Dr. Ray Carroll, the county coroner who performed Ron's autopsy, was accused by the Circleville writer of being a pedophile. Dr. Carroll ended up getting charged with 12 counts of gross immorality, sex crimes, corruption of a minor, pornography, obscenity, and indecent exposure in 1993.
Wow.
David Longberry, the original suspect that Mary suspected as being the writer, forcibly raped an 11-year-old girl in 1999.
Good Lord.
What in the... Oh, my God.
He went on the run and became a fugitive before dying by suicide.
Right on.
So, again, I said that Paul Freshour created a website to profess his innocence. He claimed that Sheriff Radcliffe covered up the crimes as much as possible in order to become president of the National Sheriff's Association, which he ended up doing.
Uh-huh.
Paul Freshour died in 2012, still maintaining his innocence. So, was Paul Freshour guilty?
Wow.
If not him, who?
It was the sheriff.
I
Well,
think everybody did it. I think they were all in on it.
Here's the most common theories. The first, Mary Gillespie herself.
Yeah.
How did Mary know to pull her bus over and attempt to pull down the one sign that was booby-trapped?
Right.
You know, she saw many.
Mm-hmm.
How was she able to pull it down without being hurt? Mary claimed that she began seeing Gordon Massey only after the letters started, but was that true? Then her husband was killed, allowing her to openly have a relationship with Gordon. However, some of the signs that were put up were about Mary's daughter, Tracy, so this theory is kind of unlikely. David Longberry, again, he was originally suspected by Mary, but as he committed suicide while on the run, we'll never know.
Yeah.
Karen Freshour. Her divorce to Paul was not amicable, and she had access to Paul's gun. The letters she found that she got rid of without showing police, and her odd behavior when unsolved mysteries came to town.
Mm-hmm.
William Massey, Gordon Massey's son. The original letters were to Mary, and the subject was that she needed to end the affair with Gordon Massey, and some of the letters were signed with a W.
Huh.
The man with the El Camino. Karen was dating a man with a similar description. Her brother owned an El Camino. So who knows on that one. So why I decided to do this was because 48 Hours did a story on this, and I really wanted to see, because their whole tagline was, we finally have the true Circleville Letter Writer. So I watched the 48 Hours documentary, and they brought in forensics document expert Beverly East for an independent analysis of the letters.
Uh-huh.
She began by studying known writings by Paul. She noticed that Paul wrote the letter G almost like the number 6, which she said was very unusual. She studied 49 of the anonymous Circleville letter writers spanning from 77 to 1990s. She found the same unusual G shaped like a number 6 in several of the letters, including one sent while Paul was in prison. She then pointed to a letter which had a zip code with an ambiguous 3 that also might be a 2. She said it was like the writer was not sure if the zip code was 42112 or 43113. She found the same mistake in the Circleville letters. She further admitted that there were writing patterns that did not look like Paul's. She did see, though, almost 100 examples of his distinct quirks that she was able to identify. And she said she would swear on the Bible in court that Paul was that Paul and the Circleville letter writer were the same person. 48 Hours did then report that investigators found Paul's fingerprints on about a dozen of the Circleville letters postmarked while he was incarcerated. So, is Paul the Circleville writer? The evidence seems to stack up against him.
Yeah.
But the sheriff's investigation seems dicey.
Yeah.
The other thing is, how did hundreds of letters get sent while he was in prison, especially when he had no access to pen and paper?
Yeah. I mean, I could see maybe once a month.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, unless the sheriff's in it with him, and
so
that's what I'm thinking. I think the sheriff at least had something to do with it.
How much goes on in prisons that they quote don't see?
Sure,
unquote,
sure. Did he maybe have a stash of letters that he had someone else send while he was in prison? And if so, who?
Yeah. Oh wow.
And if not Paul,
that's a crazy.
And
puzzle.
if not Paul Freshour, then who?
Yeah.
No one has ever been charged with writing the letters.
And was somebody forging his handwriting? Or
I don't know. But I mean, you've got a handwriting expert that's, I mean, she says it's a science that she, she's almost never wrong. No one has ever been charged with writing the letters, and the Pickaway County Sheriff's Office says the case is closed.
Okay.
So we may never know really who was the Circleville Letter Writer. This one gets to end open-ended.
Well, and they never the DA who killed the lady that he.
Roger Klein. Well, he was cleared of that. But yeah. I mean, there was so many weird things.
Yeah, it's one of those. Maybe they all did it.
Sure.
I mean, why not?
I'd like to give a shout out to my friend Jennifer. Don't ever go down to Circleville since you're in Ohio. Steer clear of that town.
Yeah.
Well, see, and I want to go to Circleville. I want to see this town. I mean, this
looks like Peyton Place. It's okay.
Yeah.
Well, this was such an interesting story to research because of all the twists in it.
Right.
I think
thousands of letters. That's kind of
thousands.
what that I can't get past.
Is that what's twisting your noodle?
Or over 1,000.
Yeah.
Was it thousands or over 1,000?
Over 1,000.
Yeah, over
1,300,
1,000.
I think you said, or something like that.
No, just over 1,000.
Over 1,000.
Just over 1,000.
That's still, even over that number of years, that's a lot of letter writing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and the letter writer was fingering people all over town on different things that they were doing, and it was very weird. I think it was Paul Freshour, but I don't think he was alone.
Oh, yeah.
Me personally,
Oh, like Hot Fuzz. It's that's
what I mean. It's for the greater good.
yeah, it's for the greater good.
The greater good. Shut it.
me personally, I think it was Gordon Massey's son and Paul.
Oh yeah.
That's what I think. I think it was the son. I think the son was in it with him.
Or maybe the son started it and got him involved later on.
Maybe it's entirely possible. It's so wild. We're never going to get an answer on this.
Wow.
The only one that I know, I mean, I didn't see that William Massey, I assume he's still alive, so he might be the only one that could shed more light on this.
Well, if I were involved, I wouldn't be talking.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all, because, to this day, it's an
I'd
open
be
mystery.
like, hey, I got away with it. I don't know how, but I did.
Right. Well, and Paul, and Paul Freshour's dead, so.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so like I said,
Thanks for picking a good one. My first time on.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
1,000 letters. I can't get over that.
I did not originally have this for this episode,
Right on.
but after I'd finished that, I was like, "Man, this is just fascinating."
It's a good one.
Yeah, I want to talk about this one.
I can't. Wow.
And that's where I was.
Yeah, I just that amount of writing and then to not get caught, not to slip somewhere
Sure.
where you put incontrovertible evidence out there
Right.
accidentally. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
surely.
And can you just?
I've watched enough Columbo. I know how these things are supposed to work.
Well, can you imagine how creeped out that town had to have been?
I know.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's just because, and that's
Well,
what,
it
and
makes
that's
you wonder if the sheriff maybe not had something to do with it.
There's-
Because I mean, it's because it's who better to know all the kind of shady shit going on down around town anyway.
Sure.
Who better?
Sure. We'll never know. Unfortunately, we'll probably never ever know. If anything new pops up on this, I'll definitely be happy to share it.
absolutely.
But
Thank you.
yeah, just a
That was a
really-
wild ride. Thanks
Yeah.
for the ride.
Yeah. No, that's great.
That's your cliquish small town for the week.
So Trey, thanks for joining us today. I hope you
Thank
enjoyed
for having
it.
me. Thank you for having
It was
me.
great.
Yeah.
I think there was some really, really good stuff in here.
I hope so.
Yes.
I'm a curmudgeon or curmudgeon, and maybe we'll allow you back. So
Okay,
we'll see.
well, that's fine.
We'll
Maybe
see.
I'll come back.
My curmudgeons.
It's gonna be that way.
I love my
Man, I mean,
curmudgeons.
really.
I'm looking at 3 of them right now.
No, this is great. So, as always, you can find more information about us on nerderymurdery.com. All of our show notes are there, from our links to our episodes, pictures from the episode as well. You can find different information about us. You can find our link to our merchandise on there. Definitely go out there and show your fandom. See what get your own merchandise so you can show off. You've got our contact information on there that you can get a hold of all of us. There's also links to all of our social media. There's links to our Patreon. please, if you like quality programming like the ones you've just heard, please consider donating.
Yes, please. Please and thank you.
There you go. So please and thank you for those of you who do support the show. We very, very much appreciate it.
If you're really nice, they'll call you a curmudgeon.
We might call you a curmudgeon.
Yes.
Sure. We can make that a little spiff. We can add that in, and we'll call you a curmudgeon.
Extra $5, you get to be an official curmudgeon.
Official commercial.
So that takes us to the end of this week. And with that,
I have been Zig with your nerdery.
no, you haven't.
I've been Trey with your Nerdery.
There you go. And I have been Geoffrey with your murdery.
Cue the music.